In the remote stretches of the Appalachian Mountains, where the mist clings to the dense pine forests and the wind carries secrets through narrow valleys, there stands an imposing structure known as Ravenbrook Asylum. Its Gothic architecture, with towering spires and iron-barred windows, cast long shadows over the surrounding landscape, and even in daylight, the buildings seemed to exude a silent, unsettling presence. The townspeople avoided it, speaking of it only in hushed tones, especially after sunset, warning visitors of the darkness that dwelled within. The asylum's origins date back to the early 1900s, built to house the criminally insane and those deemed a danger to society. Dr. Nolan Taylor, a well-respected psychiatrist of the time, was appointed as the first director. Under his supervision, the asylum grew rapidly, employing experimental therapies that were considered advanced for the era. Hydrotherapy, electroshock, isolation treatments, and various forms of behavioral conditioning. But as the institution expanded, whispers began to circulate. Patients claimed the corridors seemed to stretch endlessly. Rooms shifted in ways that defied architecture, and shadows moved in corners where no light should reach. Staff members whispered among themselves of strange occurrences. Doors slamming shut on their own, cold drafts that would freeze a man to the bone even in summer, and fleeting figures that vanished before anyone could fully perceive them. By the 1950s, a string of mysterious disappearances began to plague nurses, orderlies, and even doctors would vanish, leaving behind beds still neatly made, charts half-written, and the faint smell of antiseptic in abandoned wings. Patients, many of whom were lucid, spoke of being watched by unseen eyes, and of hearing voices murmuring their names at night. Some claimed to have glimpsed figures dressed in the asylum's staff uniforms, their faces twisted into expressions of torment and sorrow. Authorities conducted investigations, but no evidence ever surfaced to explain the disappearances. Over time, the stories became legends, and Ravenbrook's reputation as a haunted place was cemented in local lore. One particularly bitter winter, a group of urban explorers ventured into the asylum, drawn by the allure of mystery and the thrill of confronting what others feared. Armed with flashlights, cameras, and a mixture of bravado and skepticism, they entered through a side door that had long been unsealed by vandals. Inside, the building smelled of mold, decay, and the faint remnants of chemicals once used in medical treatments. Peeling paint hung like tattered curtains from the walls, and broken furniture was scattered across hallways where the echo of footsteps seemed to follow them despite the emptiness. As they moved deeper into the asylum, strange phenomena began to occur. Doors would slam shut behind them with no wind. Their flashlights flickered inexplicably, and in the stillness of certain corridors they could hear whispers, low and unintelligible at first, growing clearer and sharper as if words were forming just beyond comprehension. One explorer, a young woman named Clara, felt a hand brush against her shoulder, though when she turned, there was no one there. Panic began to set in, but curiosity and the desire to capture evidence kept them moving forward. They discovered the old treatment wing, abandoned for decades. Wheelchairs were overturned, straps still dangling from gurneys, and the walls were scarred with old, peeling paint and what seemed to be claw marks. In a storage closet, they found journals belonging to former staff members, detailing treatments that now seemed cruel and inhumane. Patients left in darkness for days, exposed to harsh lights, and subjected to endless rounds of psychological experiments. The explorers realized that the asylum's reputation for haunting was not merely superstition. Something dark and malevolent had been cultivated here over decades. In the deepest section of the asylum, they stumbled upon a concealed door, almost invisible behind a false wall. It led to a hidden chamber, a small, windowless room that smelled strongly of mildew and decayed wood. On the floor lay scattered belongings of former patients, tattered clothing, worn shoes, and torn pages from diaries. The explorers reported a sudden drop in temperature, their breath fogging in front of their faces. A whisper echoed through the room. "Why are you here?" One of them, a man named James, shined his flashlight into the corner, and for a brief moment, he saw her. A woman in a tattered hospital gown, her face pale, eyes hollow, lips moving though no sound emerged. She stepped forward, and though her form flickered, Her presence was suffocating. The explorers backed away, stumbling over debris, heartbeats pounding. As the whispers grew louder and merged into a chorus of sorrowful voices, the room seemed to stretch, walls bending, the ceiling heightening, as if the building itself were alive and responding to their intrusion. Hours seemed to pass, though it could have been mere minutes. The explorers fled, stumbling through the darkened halls, chased not by a living person but by the weight of the asylumist history and the echo of those who had perished within. Once outside, the cold winter air hit their faces like a shock. They gasped, shivering, and turned to look back at the asylum. In a broken window of the upper floor, they swore they saw a pale figure staring at them, the hollow eyes fixed, the mouth opening in a silent scream. Even after they left, the events lingered. Their cameras, upon reviewing the footage later, revealed shadows that had not been visible to the naked eye. Faces materialized in darkness, barely perceptible, yet unmistakably human. Whispered names could be heard faintly if headphones were used. The footage was shared online, fueling new waves of urban legend, drawing thrill seekers to the asylum despite its danger. Locals continued to tell tales. Nurses vanished. Patients were found in rooms they had never entered. And on some nights, a distant light could be seen moving through broken hallways, as if someone or something was still wandering the asylum. Some visitors reported seeing figures that resembled former staff, their expressions twisted in eternal torment, wandering aimlessly. Others claimed to have felt hands gripping their shoulders, invisible to the eye, urging them to flee. Over decades, the asylum fell into greater ruin. Windows shattered, doors warped, and ivy crept up the stone walls. Yet the legend only grew. People claimed that if you walked too close to the ruins at night, you might hear faint cries, footsteps following your every step, and the unmistakable sound of metal restraints being dragged along the floors. The story of Ravenbrook became a cautionary tale, warning against arrogance, curiosity, and the intrusion into places where the past has not been forgiven. Even today, some claim the spirits of the asylum are restless, bound by the cruelty and suffering they endured. On cold, foggy nights, travelers and locals alike say that if you listen closely, you can hear the echoes of the past. Whispers of patients, murmurs of staff, and the low, almost melodic hum of Dr. Nolan Taylor's experiments. Long gone, but never forgotten, the asylum remains standing, decaying, yet alive in memory, photographs, and folklore. Those who enter risk more than fear. They risk glimpsing the thin veil between life and death, sanity and madness, past and present. The legend persists. Ravenbrook Asylum is not merely haunted. It is a monument to suffering, a reminder that some darkness can never be buried, only observed by those brave or foolish enough to look. And so the ghost of Ravenbrook Asylum continues to watch from the shadows, a silent sentinel of terror waiting patiently for the next visitor to hear their name whispered in the wind, to feel a cold hand brush their shoulder, to see the hollow eyes in the broken windows, and perhaps never leave.